Thanks, Kevin and Lori, for setting the stage for this. I come from a little bit of a different lens. So my name's Aiden. I'm the manager of community development, which sounds like a very broad department, and it is in one sense. But the main focus of the work that we do at the YMCA in Cumberland, YMCA of Cumberland in Amherst, which is a good 2 hours away from here, focuses on homelessness and people that are experiencing homelessness and are precariously housed. And so a lot of the clients that we see in our office may not be candidates for home sharing. And when I first learned about the symposium, I thought about how this is a kind of a new concept for me, definitely, but I wonder if this is a new concept for a lot of folks, especially when I look through the lens of homelessness. And what I kind of realized in learning about this, and I can very much appreciate the research that Lori did to look into what is this, and how does this already exist or not exist? And the conclusion I came to is that how home sharing definitely exists, especially when it comes to people that are experiencing homelessness, where you have people that might be recently housed that were experiencing homelessness that now finally have a place to call their own. But also have a lot of visitors. And so they end up helping and sharing their small space with many, many other people that they know that are on the streets and need a space to share. And so that's kind of my initial take when thinking about home sharing. But just to give a little bit more context about the work that we do, we're supported through the provincial government through Department of Community Services. So my staff, I have 3 staff that work for me full time. One housing support worker, which helps people find housing, but also complete the many forms that people have to fill out in order to get rent supplements or get connected to other services like income assistance. I also have someone who is called a diversion worker, and I think it's a unique position across the province. This position works with folks that are coming out of institutions, so whether it be the hospital or corrections. And so we know that people coming out of corrections face their own unique set of barriers when trying to find housing. And so we're very gracious to have the ability to work with our partners in the government to do that work. And I also have a trusteeship worker, and these positions exist across the province and are in many of our communities. And our trusteeship worker works to help people become financially more stable through financial literacy programming, budgeting, and also managing their funds. And so these are just three things that main programs that are funded, but we also do a multitude of other things that are not funded because that's what the community need is. And so one of the other roles we have in the office is coordinated access. And this is a Reaching Homes initiative. So that's a federally funded program that exists across Canada. And so Nova Scotia has coordinated access in pockets. HRM, I believe, has a more developed coordinated access system, but for most of rural Nova Scotia, it doesn't exist. And the idea is that it's one door for access to housing. So if we know that there are rent geared to income units, so from the Housing Authority, if there's units available there's a connection that smaller groups can get connected with and other housing support workers can get connected with. And if someone calls up and says, hey, I'm looking for an apartment, we have a list of housing options available. And I think we all know in this room that there are no housing options for most people. And so I think that home sharing becomes a new resource to add to coordinated access. And I think Kevin said it a little more eloquently that there's not enough workers to build new, and that home sharing is the most immediate, but also that, as Lori said, there has to be accountability. And in order for us to build this, these are the kinds of discussions that we need to be having. And so, again, when I think back to how home sharing or house sharing, I would say. And David, I liked what you said about how there's a difference between home sharing and house sharing. When I think about house sharing, that happens, and I see it in the community. And it happens in, maybe in ways that we don't envision here, and in the way that we're trying to match seniors and students, or people that have a housing deficit to people that have a housing surplus, or maybe through accessory dwellings. The way that house sharing and home sharing looks through the lens of homelessness is trade. So some people that we know that come through our office are trading sex, or trading drugs, or trading whatever resources they have, whether that be they went to the food bank that month, or that, and I say month because in Amherst our food bank is once a month. And then they can trade their groceries for a place to stay. Or, so there's a multitude of ways in which people are sharing their house and maybe not sharing their home. But to the extent of which people have resources, and whether that's money or not, that happens all the time. There's quite a crisis actually happening in Cumberland County. Recently, in a smaller community, Spring Hill, there was a 15-unit building that was condemned, and so there was 15 units that all the people in the building had to leave, and they had about an hour to pack up and leave. Yeah, it's been quite the emergency. And unfortunately, there's not a lot of housing. And, Kevin, you mentioned a lot about affordability, and we know that nothing's really affordable. And lots of people will travel to rural areas outside of urban areas and trying to access, less cost. But, I have my team currently doing housing rental rates in Cumberland, and we're on par with Halifax. So, a one-bedroom unit is between $1,500, $1,800 a month, plus heat and lights. So, a one-bedroom, which can only accommodate 1-2 people, isn't affordable for a one-person or a two-person family, especially if they don't have the income to afford it. So, I think that, Lori, I think you're right. In rural areas, there's different demands and different needs that people have, and we definitely see that every day in our office. But I think there's some bright spots. There's definitely a lot of work being done across the province in rural areas when it comes to coalitions like St. Margaret's Bay and Transition Bay. And the other hat that I have on while I'm sitting up here is being the board chair for the new Nova Scotia Nonprofit Housing Association. And I'm a recipient of a lot of hard work that other people did walking into this position in terms of the work that was done to create this association and the support that we had through the Transformation Center and the province. Some obvious goals of the Nonprofit Housing Association is to build that capacity in our networks and coalitions and our groups that maybe are a little less formalized. But another goal is to bring all our voices together. All of us here have a voice about what's happening in our communities and what's happening in our own homes, whether we are in need of housing or have an excess of housing. And so all those voices are really important to bring together. And so also today, and I'm sorry, Trish, I'm going to put you on the spot here, but our executive director for the Housing Association is also here. So I'll open up that maybe over the break and this afternoon, if people have time, Trish is definitely here. We'd love to hear from everybody and kind of the issues that you're facing, because we need to bring those voices together to raise up. So that's my shameless plug for the Housing Association. But like I said, the project itself came from community, and all the people on the board and people that were involved in the process are all from organizations that have been working on this issue for a long time. So I think aside from the ways in which we can organize ourselves together, I think having these conversations around what are the community needs are really important. some communities might have more single-family homes. Some communities might have more mobile homes or prefab homes. We've seen an advent of a lot of people moving towards prefab homes and modular homes because of their quicker turnaround, because of the way that they're built, and again, the bigger barrier to that is always cost, but also land. So how much land is there? And I think that municipalities have been trying to respond to access to land as through the community trusts, but also through allowing people to have accessory dwellings. A lot of bylaws have had to change, and I think that there's a lot of policy that gets in the way of unique solutions to housing. I know that the province has recently announced investments in they're called pallet villages, so the tiny, almost like a tiny shelter, but having a village of tiny shelter is not unlike what happens in Fredericton at the 12 Neighbors organization, where there is, a growing group of small homes with community feel that also tries to build in capacity building, and I think that the missing piece out of some of the discussion here is looking at what people's capacities are and what their resources are. Like I said, in our office, we see people with a lot of what we call high acuity, so a lot of intersecting issues, whether it be addictions or mental health issues, health issues. Maybe there's a lot of social network burnout where they've asked all their family and their friends, and they've burnt those bridges in the short term, and that they need to rely more heavily on services. And so we know that the unique needs of folks that may not fit this model for what we're saying with seniors and students, also still, those issues still need to be addressed, and home sharing still might be something that could work in a more supportive way with having more direct services involved in supporting those folks in those situations. So I think I'll leave it there for now, and I'm more than happy to continue having conversations with folks individually. I think there's a lot of good ideas that are coming out of today, and I'm very excited to talk to anybody about what they're seeing and how we can work together. So, thank you.
Next. Thank you.